On the day the great master passed away, the entire monastery fell silent. There was no final sermon, no lengthy chants. He simply turned to his successor, held his hand gently, and said, "Remember one thing, never let a cat into your life." That was it. Then he closed his eyes. The whole monastery was stunned. But the young disciple couldn't sleep. That sentence, seemingly absurd, perhaps even meaningless, became a splinter in the successor's heart. No one understood the words. No one asked more. Most assumed it was just a random remark. But for the young disciple, it felt like a secret code left unsolved. What did cat mean? A few days later, seeing the disciple still deep in thought, an old monk who had served closely under the master for many years approached him quietly. "You're troubled by the master's last words, aren't you?" The young man nodded. The old monk smiled, his eyes distant. "I know why he said that. I witnessed the entire story. And it's not really a story about a cat." And so, another story unfolded, like a mirror reflecting truth. Back when your master was young, he was just like you now, pure-hearted, seeking the way, and abandoning all worldly ties to retreat into the forest for solitary practice. He lived on alms, accepting a single meal each day from the village at the foot of the mountain. The villagers admired him. They built him a small hut of bamboo and leaves. He lived in serenity, no possessions, no desires. But then came the rats. The rats chewed his robes. They gnawed at sacred texts. One villager said, "Why don't you get a cat, master? It'll chase the rats away." He thought for a moment, then agreed. "It's just a cat. Nothing major." And that was when everything began to slip. Gently. Off the path. The cat came, the rats left, but the cat needed milk. The villagers suggested, "You should raise a cow. Then you won't have to come down to the village for milk every day." The cow came. The cat had milk. The monk had milk too. But cows need grass. The monk went down to ask for grass. It became a hassle. "Let the widow from the village help you. She can tend the cow, cook meals, grow vegetables." And so, layer by layer, convenience built upon comfort. Each small, harmless choice piled up. The monk no longer meditated all day. He worked the garden, harvested crops, shared meals, had conversations, and then fell in love. The small hut in the forest was no longer a place of meditation. It had become a home, filled with the cries of a child, the smoke of evening meals, a woman bustling in the kitchen, voices calling each other from the cramped vegetable garden. The monk who once sought enlightenment now carried a hoe, fetched water, chopped firewood. A day no longer passed in mindful breathing, but in the sounds of a mooing cow, a meowing cat, and a child begging to be held. One night, sitting alone, he suddenly reflected. "I once gave up the world to seek the truth, but now I am living that same world again, just in a different form." No one forced him. No one deceived him. It all began with a cat. A small solution, a bit of convenience, just once, just one thing, just a tiny opening. But once the heart cracks open, the world will walk in, and it won't want to leave. He had never left the forest, but his heart had long departed the way. He still meditated, but thoughts of his young child would appear. He still chanted mantras, but his hands ached from daily labor. He still read sutras, but his eyes strayed to the woman at the hearth, with a gaze hard to define. He had returned to the world not through one big decision, but through a series of small compromises with himself. The young disciple asked quietly, "Then, was he wrong?" The old monk shook his head. No, he was just human, and humans are always soft-hearted toward things that seem harmless. Then he added, "But what matters is he realized it. And that's why he left you those last words. Don't let the cat into your life. It's not about fearing cats. It's about fearing how fragile our hearts are before temptations that seem so small." After hearing the story, the young disciple sat in silence for a long time. Something had been touched within him, not fear, but a kind of insight. It all began with something small, a cat. But truly, it wasn't the cat's fault. It was the fault of the mind that let it in. The old monk looked at him, nodded, and said slowly, "You know, the most dangerous enemy isn't the world outside. It's the one living in your head. Once the mind is left unchecked, it'll take you everywhere, except where you truly want to go." The mind is like a child. If not trained, it will rule you. At first, the mind just wants a little comfort, a little convenience, a bit of ease. You agree? Just this once. But the second time comes faster than the first. The third doesn't even need your permission. And by the time you realize it, it's no longer asking, it's commanding. Eat this? It's delicious. Sleep a bit more, the exam can wait. Scroll your phone a little, no big deal. Watch this, everyone else is watching it too. In the beginning, you're in control. But then, you forget to hold the reins. The mind is the vehicle, but also the wild horse. Most people fear outside enemies, bad people, traps, difficult circumstances. But the wise fear the enemy within, the untrained mind. If you can master the mind, it's your strongest ally. But if you let it run wild, it becomes your most dangerous traitor. Every wrongdoing begins with a small compromise. Just this once. Everyone does it. It's not that serious. That's how bad habits are born. Not with noise or drama, but with a gentle whisper. And just like the old monk's story, a cat, a cow, a housemaid, a family, and eventually, the loss of the spiritual path. All because he allowed himself to be too lenient with his own mind. The old monk continued. You can live deep in the mountains, eat vegetarian, chant scriptures every day, but if you don't master your mind, it's all just form. A person may look successful and dignified on the outside, but if their mind is chaotic inside, they still suffer. A poor, ordinary person, if their mind is steady like a mountain, is truly free. The mind is where all suffering begins, and also where all liberation opens. The young disciple asked, "So how can I tell when the mind is leading me astray?" The old monk replied, "Observe. Whenever your mind wants things fast, wants things easy, wants reward without effort, then it's taking you off course. But when your mind accepts difficulty, accepts slowness, is willing to return to itself, that's when you've taken back the reins. The mind is like fire, warm when mastered, destructive when ignored. Most people feed their mind through habits, scrolling, reacting, complaining, resenting, then forgetting. But the awakened person feeds their mind through mindfulness, knowing what they're thinking, wanting, and being pulled toward. Once you master your mind, you no longer need to control the whole world. That's why the master only said, "Don't let the cat in," because he knew the student would one day face 1,000 other temptations, not just cats, but money, fame, people, emotions, comforts, laziness. But if he remembers the lesson of that first cat, he'll stop in time, before things go too far. When your mind is hungry, feed it with awareness. When your mind is tired, let it rest through meditation. When your mind wants, ask yourself, who is in control, me or it? One who conquers 1,000 enemies is not as mighty as the one who conquers their own mind. After the old monk's long story, The young disciple sat quietly by the oil lamp for a long time. No more doubts about the cat, because now he understood, not simply because he heard a story, but because inside him, a conversation had begun with himself. He looked back at himself. Diligence, discipline, respect for the teacher, all still there. But deep inside, there were moments when he let his mind drift away unnoticed, chanting scriptures while craving respect, helping others while hoping for praise. The mind does not create a big fault. It only slides lightly off its course, and then silently changes the direction of a whole life. Don't let the cat step into your life. Now this sentence is no longer a hidden code. It's a guiding star, a question to ask every time he faces a small choice. Am I doing this because my mind is peaceful, or because my mind wants it? Am I living simply, or am I clearing the way for confusion to enter? Am I seeking liberation, or painting my ego's colors? The next morning, he began the day as usual. But in every step, every motion of sweeping, ringing the bell, brewing tea, there was a new mindfulness. No one noticed his change. No one knew that yesterday he had heard a life-changing story. But he knew, from now on, he would never let the cat step in again, no matter how tiny and cute it seemed. And you, the reader of this story. One day, you will face a small decision. Should I watch just one more entertaining video? Should I buy this unnecessary thing? Should I join in gossiping this time? At that moment, remember the old monk. Remember the cat. And ask your mind, am I in control or being controlled? The mind is not the enemy, but if untrained, it will lead you where you don't want to go. Discipline does not kill freedom. It protects you from the traps your own mind sets. You don't need to live perfectly. Just guard your mind each day. Don't let the cat step in. You may forget this story. You may not remember the master's name, the disciple's name, or the storyteller's. But if one day, in a small decision, you suddenly hear a soft voice inside, careful, that's the first cat. Then this story lives on through you.